Falconry is the age-old art of training a bird of prey to hunt with man. It is not a question of dominance, but instead a bond or partnership between bird, man and dog. It's a tremendously exciting experience to train an essentially wild bird of prey to fly and return. If you get it right, the experience is unforgettable, but if you get it wrong, you can kill the bird. In the making of this story, we filmed the training as it happened. Unfortunately, the birds behaved rather too well, and often the handling of them looks too easy. Let me also apologise in advance for the verbal fluffs, but the actions were more important than the words. Birds of prey are divided into various different groups. For the purposes of falconry, they're divided into four: the falcons, the hawks, the buzzards and the eagles. The group we have here are the falcons. And all of these that you see here, bar one, are suitable for falconry birds. Probably the best known and the least suitable for most of us is the peregrine. The reason it's the least suitable is that it needs the most expensive countryside to fly in. To do it justice, you need to fly a peregrine in either really good partridge country in Norfolk, or else go up to Scotland, or maybe northern England, where you've got plenty of grouse in open moorland country. They're not the most expensive of birds to buy, but they are the most expensive of birds to fly. To also do them justice, you need to have at least 6 weeks off so that you can fly them every day and get them going really well. So the majority of us don't fly them, not because we don't like them or that they're too expensive, but because we can't afford the time or the place. Sakers are not very greatly used in this country. I'm surprised. They make good falconry birds, and they are the one falcon who actually likes taking ground game. So these can be used not only off the fist at rooks, but they could also be used off the fist at rabbits, not hares, they're too big, but certainly the females could take pheasants. This is a male that's 2 years old, just going from immature to adult plumage. Now next to him is a cross, a hybrid, between two species. They've got certain advantages. They have what's called hybrid vigour. They're much more energetic. This is a cross between peregrines and sakers, and it's a male. We haven't flown very many of them, but those that we have flown have shown tremendous potential, and this bird will be following through the training and going up to Scotland with. We have two that I haven't got on show here, and those are the lugger and the prairie falcon. Again, both of them good hunting birds. So long as you persevere. Both of them, particularly the prairie falcon, have a difficult temperament, to say the least. Prairies can be an absolute pain in the rear end, but if you can get over that first 3 weeks of hell with them hanging upside down, screaming and generally being awful, then once you've got them tame and settled, they're one of the bravest falcons there are, and will crash into cover after quarry quite happily. Lanners are my favourites, I would say. Dynamite birds for partridges if you work well with them. They've been underused again in this country because we used to have only wild ones in from abroad. Now with the captive bred ones, these would make very good falconry birds in the more enclosed countryside that most of us have. Kestrels are not falconry birds, without any shadow of doubt. You can't catch very much with them. You get the odd one that will, but generally they're catching worms and mice, neither of which make particularly good eating for humans. They're difficult to train because they're small, and the smaller the bird, the narrower the margin of error. And last but not least is the merlin. I say last because we're seeing it last, and also because it's the last of the falcons anyone wants to train. You need to be so experienced with these little birds. This little male here is only 16 weeks old and flies at 4¼ ounces at the moment, which means that if I go too low, it would be incredibly easy to kill him. Flown in open country, they used to be the ladies' falcon in the Middle Ages, and they're wonderful in the first 6 to 8 weeks of their hunting life because they will ring up after larks and give you the most dramatic flight of all. But if you're going to hunt larks with them, you need a license from the DofE to do it. These are the buzzards. You'll notice that these birds are sitting on different perches from the falcons. The falcons sit on blocks which have a curved top which simulates the sort of rock or cliff that they would be sitting on in the wild. The buzzards and the hawks sit on a bow perch which simulates the branch of a tree that they might be sitting on in the wild. There are 4 buzzards used in falconry in this country, of which we have 2 here. The common buzzard, which is not here, is slightly smaller than the red-tailed buzzard and has much smaller feet. It's a good beginner's bird because of its size. The bigger the bird, the less you're liable to kill it when you're training it in the early stages. But because it has very small feet, it's not so capable of catching large quarry. Although buzzards have suffered badly from myxomatosis in this country in the wild, because the rabbit population went down, the buzzard population went down as well. They are extremely good at catching rabbits, so long as you persevere with them. The other buzzard that I would not recommend in the slightest, unless you have an immense amount of time and patience and very open countryside to fly it in, is the ferruginous buzzard. They're birds of the open plain. They've got long pointed wings and they live in the northern plains in North America, and in wooded country they're useless. They can't get up the sort of speed they need and they can't maneuver and stop. So unless you have decent country, don't touch them. However, the red-tailed buzzard is a much better falconry bird altogether. It's bigger and more powerful than the common buzzard. It's got a bit more go about it, and it's capable of hunting rabbits, hares, partridges if you get it very fit, moorhens, coots, ducks, squirrels, which you have to be careful with because they can bite a bird's foot quite badly, and they'll regularly take pheasants so long as they're fit. Both the red-tailed buzzard and the Harris hawk are super birds for a beginner, because as the beginner is learning, the bird is learning. As the beginner gets better, the red-tail and the Harris will develop with him. The Harris hawk is probably the most popular falconry bird in this country at the moment. It's almost a buzzard and almost a hawk. It's between the two. Its Latin name is Parabuteo unicinctus, which means like buzzard. It belongs almost to both families. It's got the long tail and the shorter wings of the hawk, the long legs of the hawk, but the very big, powerful feet of the buzzard, and a much milder temperament than the hawk. A lot of people use them just as weekend birds, those people who haven't got time to fly them during the week, and you can go in, pick it up and take it out flying because they're tame enough and relaxed enough to be able to cope with that sort of hunting. They will also take a wide variety of game. Both the Harris and the red-tail, if you look after them well, will actually be with you for anything up to 25 years. After the Harris hawk come the true hawks, the accipiters. There are probably 3, maybe 4 in this country that you could get hold of. The black sparrowhawk, which we breed here, the Cooper's hawk, which is not being bred over here yet, but I think will be soon, and then the 2 British hawks, the sparrowhawk, which is the most difficult of all of the hawks to train, and the goshawk, of which we have one here behind us. But as a beginner, they're not a bird that anyone should ever attempt. They're temperamental, they're nervous, they're inclined to die on you if you don't know what you're doing. So really you cannot attempt any of the hawks until you stop being a beginner and you know exactly what you're doing. Eagles. Not the sort of bird for most people to fly, but we thought we'd show you some anyway. If you're going to fly eagles at all, you have to remember that this is a potentially dangerous bird. This is a male golden eagle here, and he cannot tell the difference between rabbits and Yorkshire Terriers. And it gets extremely embarrassing if your eagle goes around catching people's terriers. Ow! Will you be a bit more gentle? But if you have got the right sort of countryside to fly them in, and Scotland is obviously the place to fly golden eagles, then they're wonderful. But don't think you can do it unless you have no job, an awful lot of money, and thousands of acres to fly over with complete safety. Otherwise, the big eagles like golden eagles are a waste of time, and if the wrong people fly them, falconry may well get banned because of it. There are smaller eagles which you can fly, and in this country the only one that's being bred is the tawny eagle. It's not being bred in very great numbers, and the ones that we breed sadly are all hand-reared, not parent-reared, which makes them more difficult to manage. This is a female tawny eagle of the Indian variety, and her name is Alex, and these are capable of taking roughly the same sort of quarry that a golden's going to take if you're hunting with it. They'll take hares, they'll take rabbits, they would probably take pheasants as well, although most of the eagles need space. But you don't need quite so much space with these eagles as you do with the goldens or the big eagles. The options anyway are fairly limited in this country for the eagles that you can actually get hold of, and probably the only one available at the moment, unless you start importing, is this one. If you were going to take up keeping a horse, you would get somewhere to keep it and food and saddlery before getting it. The same applies when taking up falconry. Good quarters are essential, as is a food supply and a vet. And without permission to hunt over at least 1,000 acres of land, serious hunting is just not possible. As all birds of prey are protected by law in Britain, the legal position should be understood by anyone wanting to own one. The guys to ask are the Department of the Environment and the best of British luck. Travelling birds is not normally a problem except in very hot summers, when it is best to avoid the heat of the day. Always travel untrained birds in a large, strong, carpeted box. Hoods have been around for centuries. They are used to calm a bird by putting it in the dark. We will often hood a bird while fitting tail bells and jesses. Actually, I usually hood them to keep them quiet, as falcons can object to things in an extremely noisy fashion. We have 2 people available when getting a new bird out of the breeding pens ready to start training. Most birds of prey have sharp talons, so while the bird is still in the catch net, we clip off the sharp tips from the talons, because the quickest way for a bird to get a foot infection is by puncturing its own foot with its talons. The jesses are leather straps placed on the bird's legs. These work in the same way as a collar on a dog. They give you something to hold on to. Although there have been many different types invented over the last decade or so, I only favour 2 types for use in Britain. The traditional jess is a leather strap which threads through itself. The advantage of this type is that there's no metal eyelet to put pressure on the leg and subsequently cause injury. We only use traditional jesses on falcons, as ours are supposed to be trained not to sit in trees. Hawks and buzzards, however, often hunt from trees, and so could get caught up by the straps. Aylmer jesses are much more modern. They are a short leather bracelet held round the bird's leg with an eyelet, through which is threaded a removable leather strap. They were invented by a British falconer called Guy Aylmer, hence the name. The straps are removed for hunting. At times, during any captive bird's life, it will have to be cast or held physically. It is all too easy to damage the vital flight feathers, and so we wrap a bird up while holding it. Notice how we always try to avoid self-inflicted injury with those powerful feet by using a cushion for the bird to hold on to. Also notice that although this is an unhandled bird, it really doesn't seem too worried by what is happening to it. The trick is to be confident in the handling, which will transmit to the bird. To put a tail bell on, you need a bell. This is fixed through a piece of plastic or a plectrum so it doesn't drop through the tail feathers. Glue, I use rapid araldite. I don't like super glue. All I do is stick my fingers together with it, but rapid araldite works well. Thread and wax to thread the wax. Wax the thread. A piece of paper and a bulldog clip to isolate the 2 tail feathers that you want. You need a pair of leather punches to get the bell ready, a pair of scissors, and most important, a curved needle. And if you haven't got a curved one, do what we did and curve it in the gas fire. The whole point of a bell is to help locate a bird should it be out of sight on a kill or have decided to go AWOL. I can never understand why people ask me why a bird wears a bell, as I would have thought it was blatantly obvious, but I could be wrong. There are 3 ways of attaching the bell, all of them totally painless, although I'm none too sure about the actual use of neck bells. The most common way is to place the bell on the leg with a leather strap, called a Buet strap. It should always be above the jess and below any ring. I much prefer the tail bell. This is glued and tied to the centre two tail feathers as is being demonstrated. There are more modern ways of doing it, such as cable ties, but being somewhat old-fashioned, I prefer the old method as I know there is nothing there which can hurt the bird. Tail bells ring louder, last longer, leave legs freer, and can be heard from further away. What more can I say? As for neck bells, well, I am really not happy about putting anything round a bird's neck. Raptor legs and feet are incredibly strong. They are designed to hit quarry at speed, but their necks are much more vulnerable. So neck bells I have never used, and what's more, I have no intention of doing so. We've jessed the bird and belled it. Now the next thing we have to do is to weigh him so that we can find out what his fat, straight out of the aviary weight is. Take off the leash. We don't want to know the weight of the leash. Then gently lift him so that the tail goes over the back of the perch, and put one foot up onto the scales. Pressing the back of the leg against the scales, he should lift the other foot on. And make sure that no part of his wings are touching anything else on the scales. You must get a true reading. And this bird weighs 1 pound 10 1/4 ounces straight out of the aviary. Take the jesses with the bare hand, bring up the glove, slide it up the jesses, and just lift him, easing his talons gently off the scales. You can see he's pretty upset by the whole thing, but it is only the first day he's ever been handled since he was 2 weeks old. Now what I've done here is I put the jesses into safety position. This is the most important thing to remember whenever you have a bird on the fist. Whenever you pick it up or put it down, put the jesses into safety position between the fingers so that if it moves, the swivel comes up against the fingers and it cannot get loose. And now what we'll do is take him outside, put him on the grass and let him settle. One of the worst crimes in my book is to let go of a bird with its swivel and leash on. Its chances of survival are very slim, trailing equipment, which will undoubtedly catch up somewhere. That is why when we return a bird to its perch, it remains on the fist and the knot is tied one-handed. If the hawk is sitting on the perch while being tethered, it is not under control and could get loose. That is also why the leash and swivel should always either be in safety position or tied to the glove or tightly coiled round the fingers. Knots are not my forte. However, the falconer's knot I can do blindfolded, in a hurry, in the dark, in the cold, when it's raining. All it takes is lots of practice. It's best to practice holding a full glass of water in the gloved hand. Then, while you are concentrating like mad on the knot, you will spill the water all over yourself and realise that had it been a bird, it would not have appreciated sitting at a 45-degree angle. Untrained birds don't like being picked up, so to avoid excess stress and feather damage, they must be picked up quickly and held away from anything that their feathers might hit. The leash must be secured before attempting to get the bird to sit up. Tying the leash to the glove is a good idea for beginners. As the bird gets tamer, it will learn to jump to the fist from the perch for a reward. In the earliest days of training, the birds are often startled and horrified by everything around them. With care and patience, they will come to accept such things as a leg bell without getting upset.
Get the scissors and look as if you're going to.
Oddly enough, returning an untrained bird to its perch is actually more difficult than picking it up. They seem to recognise their perch as home and will have more desire to get to it and away from their handler. This is why it's best